Okay, evening folks. Wonderful to be here with you again. My name is John Souglides. We're broadcasting tonight on both radio stations, on Awake Radio and We Raw. Here we've got an amazing guest this evening, Gillian Grannum. We're going to be talking to her about her life, her path, where it took her, what she's discovered on her journey, and some really interesting information. Gillian, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here in South Africa, and you on the opposite side of the world, practically. Gillian, let's start. Your website is shiftfrequency.com. I've got a little bit of information here. I'd love to hear your journey, your story. I believe growing up as a child, you played with the violin, which is quite interesting. Please let's start. Where did your life start? How did you realize that you wanted to do your spiritual work, get involved? Where it's taken you, your journey, because you've really had an amazing journey, and where you are today.
Well, that's a tall order, John. So what I'd like to start with is really, when you get right down to it, every single thing that we have in life flows back to experience. What is it that we want to experience, how we want to experience it, and the opportunities that we're going to open to ourselves to live a life from which we will gain awareness. I think is really what I want to focus on.
Yeah.
And so we each come in with a blueprint. I am a spiritual numerologist, and as a result of that service, I've had an opportunity to see the great similarities that exist in all lives, as well as the great differences that we bring, the patterns that we bring in. And when I look at myself in relation to everybody else, I can see that there are specific patterns that were given me as a result of the choices I made when I created a particular blueprint that I acknowledge is me, Gillian.
Mm-hmm.
I have a date of birth. Everybody has one of those. I have a name that I respond to, and everybody has one of those. But in the background of all of this, there are specific circumstances that we create for ourselves, specific life experiences that we gain over the course of growth. It's a growth spiral that we engage in, I think, or I should say, I deeply feel when we arrive here. So my life per se isn't particularly interesting in the sense of having had opportunities to experience, shall we say, different cultures and different ways of looking at things in different countries and different people. What made it exciting was my ability to really start to grow, to learn, to start seeing through the inadequacies in the blueprint, to start seeing that there is a little bit of conditioning that's going on in me when I'm in this culture. But when I move to a second culture, they don't exactly see things the same way. And so in a nutshell, that's how my spiritual path began. I began seeing at a very early age the disconnection between what one set of belief systems incur and create in one society, and how a very different set of belief systems might have been operant in a second culture and society. And then I had to decide, okay, where do I fit in the midst of all of this? And I think that that's our life journey. And I really, really think that. So in a nutshell, that's all I have to say about myself.
Yeah, and it's amazing because a lot of people don't. I've pretty much experienced similar to what you've just explained, and a lot of people say it's rather best to be ignorant, it's best to, but it's just so beautiful, like what you explained, when one is able to see the dynamics and to be able to see through the different layers of consciousness and what is truth, and not be this conditioned and just fall into the conditionings. And that is a very important factor of being able to discern and say, this is more to than just this dimension or this reality that I'm living in, or what I'm experiencing at the moment. Because Gillian, I'm finding a lot more people nowadays are shifting and waking up, so to speak. But a lot of people, what you just said now, struggle with that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I had sort of preconceived idea of the way we could approach our conversation, and I saw it a little bit from the perspective of belief systems. And if you really get right down to it, every single thing that's going on right now is an explosion of belief systems. Everywhere we look, people are indeed waking up, and they are waking up because of two phenomena that are happening simultaneously on the planet. One is that the very foundations of life, as we have experienced it, it doesn't matter where we are, because the globe is so shrunken now. We can know what's happening in India in the blink of an eye, or we can know what's happening in America. So the shrinking of the earth has made it's the first phenomena that people are facing, I think, to a much greater degree than when life was more separate and worlds existed over there and over here, but not we're everywhere. So that's number one. The second thing that is happening is that there has been some call it an ascension process. Mm-hmm. Some say there's a jump from 3D to 5D occurring. Some say that Gaia, the planet on which we live, is waking up and moving energy forward. It doesn't really matter which belief, because again, these are all beliefs, the ways of looking at or explaining to ourselves something that's happening or that we're aware of. And it doesn't matter which it is that you really focus on. The only thing that matters is everybody agrees something's happening. Mm. And this something is quite a bit different than, shall we say, even 10 years ago. If we should project before that seminal event 9/11. I think if there was ever a wake-up bang on this planet, it was that event, because that event began to open or expand the human psyche in a way that very few other events have expanded or opened the human mind. Now, obviously, there are many different ways to look at it. It doesn't really matter whether you believe the storyline that the government puts out, or if you believe other people and the way that they recognize that something very, very important happened on that day, and that altered consciousness on this planet. But what I think we're seeing is it's like two forces. It's duality. It's two forces. So you have this incredible increase on the positive side of the spectrum, people waking up, people growing, people getting very positive in their desire to know more about life and their experience in it and what it is exactly that they came here to learn. And then you have the other side. You've got the, some people call them the dark T-shirts. Mm-hmm. And they seem to have a wonderful position of power and control in this particular system, this belief system, and they have not idle either. They have been busily pursuing their agenda.
Yeah.
And so what we're experiencing right now in 2013, I need to back up a little bit. All right, so you've got 9/11 and then you've got 2012 and all the expectations, right? Mm-hmm. All the expectations for 2012. So what were they? The primary one is that there was going to be some kind of big change on the planet. And the meme got out there. So you've got real forces at work in our environment that are encouraging people to crack that egg that is around their belief system and peep out and see what exactly might be really happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when you couple that with a speeded up sense of time, an accelerated sense of time, I mean, all of these things are happening simultaneously, all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's amazing that you brought up 2012. I mean, there were so many people that thought what a lot was going out on air about the world coming to an end. But I mean, there was definitely shifts happening. There's definitely things that are speeding up this year. There's just so much unfolding, so much of stuff that was suppressed. This is what I'm seeing from my point of view. Stuff that was being suppressed, that was able to be suppressed, no longer can. It's almost like the chains are busy breaking off. Are you seeing it that way?
Absolutely, and I like the way that you present that, because it is as if there was once almost a lockdown on our ability to perceive what was happening, what was hidden. And then after 2012, and you're right, because there were so many different expectations about what would happen with 2012, and when it didn't happen, for some who really perceived, the end of an age and the beginning of a golden age, and that particular version didn't come to pass, there was a lot of disappointment initially. But then people started noticing precisely what you just mentioned. There has been a torrent of revelation. It's almost as if a dam broke. Something that had been able to restrain visibility for itself on this planet. I personally refer to it as the hidden hand, because there is this hand that hides behind governments and corporations and manipulates belief systems. You see, this is a critical key ingredient. What they were able to accomplish when hidden in terms of manipulating a belief system is not so easily accomplished now that one begins to see the degree to which the overarching belief system that's being placed on this our Earth is inimical to human life. It isn't coming from a place of valuing of humanity and valuing of human life and valuing of everybody's right to be a free human being, to be an individual, and to experience life the way that they want to, obviously with certain caveats. I mean, no one is advocating that you do things that you don't particularly want to have done to yourself, and hopefully you would include things like stealing and theft and murder and just basic criminal activity. But once one stays within the bounds of, I am wanting to have a good experience, I am wanting to live a life that is very almost noble. That word has almost fallen away from the vocabulary, because a noble life has nothing to do with an aristocracy. It has to do with how one presents oneself. There a calmness, serenity, a willingness to expand one's perspective, to look at the whole, to try and see the other person's opinion, which may be diametrically opposed to your own, not with the sense of cutting it down, but more so with the sense of learning something and perhaps maybe even growing and expanding and changing one's mind. So now we come to 2013. What's happened? The blinders are off, and no longer can we hide in our little comfortable belief systems, cells, and pretend that things are not really out of whack. And what have we done to contribute to the perspective that we may now be holding about what's going on all around us.
Yeah, and it's amazing, Gillian, because what you just said now, in my speech in Las Vegas in 2007, back then I said because I was asked what is coming for the future, and I said to them, there's no more sitting on the fence. You either have to be on the one side or the other side. You have to choose where you belong, and people didn't quite understand that concept. But I find the minute we got into the end of 2012, and my interpretation of what the Mayans were saying, there is no more calendar. I know people have got their own explanation, but is you're going to create and be in a space where you're resonating to and cultivate it. And here this year, I mean, we're halfway into it almost. Well, we are. And it's exactly what I'm seeing is what you've explained is this dynamics and this shift. And people are saying, I don't like, I like, I want to move away from, this is what I want to be part of. I call it, it's the beginning or the birthing of what was shown to me in my visions was heaven on earth coming to this place. Obviously, it is going to take some time because there are some formalities we all have to go to. But what is your take on that, on the heaven on earth embarking upon us?
Well, you know, we're in agreement, and fundamental agreement. Where I see it a little differently is if we look around us, we can see that some people already live heaven on earth. You can have two people walking down the road. One has a belief system that the earth is beautiful, the nature is wonderful, she's a great caregiver and a great creator. And they always remember with belief systems, you look for things to affirm them. And so we tend to see the beautiful flower that's coming to bloom this morning, or we see the dew on the grass, or we hear the bird song, and we recognize our friends in the trees and the bushes. Now, we could be walking in that moment side by side with somebody who has a very different belief system. Their belief system is that they're putting chemtrails in the skies. And while you're looking all around, while person A is looking all around them at the beauty of nature and the magnificent new bloom that's just come out, this other person in the same time, in the same space, I mean, they're like side by side, is looking up at the sky and seeing a bunch of chemtrails getting laid down. Now you're a third person that comes up and meets these two. If you were to ask both of them, what is it that they were just thinking about or seeing or living, from the one you're going to hear about the beautiful flower, and from the second one you're going to hear about the chemtrails in the skies. And both are true. Both are true. What has happened is that the one that was focused on the chemtrails in the skies didn't see the beautiful flower unless it was called to their attention, unless somebody who is side by side with them actually introduces or pulls them into that world and says, here, did you see that flower? And then you've got this merging of a moment in time and a belief system. So now it's going to answer your question about are we seeing more and more of heaven on earth? Yes, we are. Because more and more individuals who may have not necessarily been open to the idea of a spirit or a world beyond the world that we can see with our five senses, or that, you know, the government is anything other than your best friend, or whatever it is that they believe.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, something happens. There's a crisis of revelation. There's just way too many scandals, shall we say, that are breaking in places of great power. And these scandals need not be limited to America. America certainly is very visible around the world, but I'm pretty sure you can pick up newspapers pretty much anywhere on the planet and encounter one or two, fairly bad scandals. So that's a universal, but what's happening is that the floodgates have opened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we can no longer have our comfortable belief that, everything's okay, folks are doing what they're supposed to do. As long as I keep my focus on what's in front of me, I'm going to be able to, live the life that I want, because that's no longer true. You're getting messages that you're being encroached upon by spying surveillance equipment. You're getting messages that individuals in very high, powerful places are manipulating the currencies of the world. Mm. And all of a sudden, certain taken for granted security beliefs are being challenged. Mm. And once those security layer beliefs start getting challenged, that's when we start waking up.
Yeah.
And in this process of waking up, what do we find? We find that we are interested in engaging conversations that previously we would not have engaged. We find ourselves visiting websites or pages that we may never have previously visited. And we find ourselves confronted with a whole different paradigm, one that has not this level of availability and awareness as, say, the paradigm that's controlled by the mass media. But all of a sudden we start finding things that are opening and expanding our world view. Mm-hmm. And as that begins to happen, what do you think people are doing around the world? Mm-hmm. What they're doing is they're deciding, do I really hate my neighbor? Do I really want to go to war with my neighbor? Do I really want to have a fight? No, that's not what I want. I want peace. I want an opportunity to live a good life, whether you're looking at the rioting in Egypt or Tunisia or wherever it is, whatever it is, you're looking at a fundamental desire in the human being to alter the circumstances of the life because it's not fulfilling. It's not giving them that feel-good feeling. And so this is where we arrive at this heaven on earth. The steps toward creating a heaven on earth is, first of all, to let go of some of the blinders, the belief systems that have been put in place to keep you, I hate to say it, but it's a fact, enslaved. Because there's no way around that. That's really what it's all about. It's serving a few who are taking the fruit and the benefit of the great majority to serve themselves without really a whole lot of service to other in the picture.
Yeah, but also, Gillian, don't you feel, because it's stuff that I've seen through my visions, and I know just for people to understand, I don't get visions where I just go sit and meditate. They can be instantaneous, and I'm sure you would relate to that. But what I've seen is, it's almost what you said earlier on. There's just so much more and more light. People can't hide anymore, which is exactly the stuff that I've been talking to people in consultations. Whether it's people in government that sneak off and they want to get assisted and helped. But pretty much it's not us as light workers or spiritual workers that are enforcing this. The universe has spoken and said it's time to shift. So wherever there's, because I've also had my fair share of, and I am going to say it on air, where I've had my phones listened into, and I've had people coming supposedly to be as a client just to instigate and to see what I'm all about. And I know they come from government departments and military departments. But anyway, it's something that the universe is doing. Is it how you feel, that it's just shifting and waking people up? It's created the momentum.
Yes, momentum is definitely here. And the ways that we sense it is the incredible acceleration in the passage of time. I think everybody can agree on some level that time is really flying. The second area where I perceive difference is in people's openness to looking at things differently. I think that's where the increase in light is having its greatest impact. as the traditional systems are breaking down,
Yeah.
and doing so very, very obviously all around us. People are no longer interested in hiding from why these things are happening. More and more, they are wanting to face whatever the deep fear might be inside of the self regarding the ability to have enough to live the life that they would like to live, or some have enough to pay a mortgage, or some have enough to buy food. All of a sudden, those issues are collapsing. They're never going away completely, obviously, but what they're doing is that they are spurring a desire to know more, because all of a sudden a life that was once perfectly okay, everything was, wonderful, relatively speaking. Some might even say they were living their equivalent of heaven on earth. All of a sudden that life is blowing up. It's not happening the way it used to. And the things that were once one took for granted, for example, that if one paid money into a retirement fund, at the time when one needed that fund, it would be available to them. And now all of a sudden a Cyprus happens, and people walk in and, take all the money out of the bank account, or at least the amount that they choose, and they cover it over with, well, we're not taking it for people who have less than whatever amount they insure. But the fact is they have set a precedent, and that precedent is that we can remove these things that you have earned from you, and there isn't a whole lot you can do about it. Well, when those types of things start percolating into the main awareness field, because all of us are in a field of energy. We're all sharing it. The only thing that's different is that we have different what I call low key of consciousness. We're points of awareness in this massive field of awareness. And we are unique individual points that are seeing things, but obviously we're not all seeing the same thing. But as that larger field starts getting flooded with light, all the different points of awareness that are tuning into this field, some people call it the hologram, as that light starts penetrating the field and the questions start popping up inside of the self, the questions like, well, I had a good life. What happened to it, and where is it going, and why are they doing these things? When those questions start popping up in awareness, and then the field starts putting a lot more light onto the, shall we say, the screen of reality. When those two things start combining, what one starts witnessing is an alteration of the base note energy of consciousness, because it doesn't matter where you are in the consciousness scale, you're aware of something changing, something different, something that is urging you to pay attention to things that maybe you weren't interested in paying attention to before. And then the next step occurs, and that step is the step of choice. Remember, you just mentioned it. You mentioned the fact that at some point in time you got to get off the fence. Yeah. You can't, you've got to be on you have to make up your mind. Is this the life I want to live, or is there something more to life than the life that I'm living? And if there is, what is it? And that's where this journey toward, I would say, the desire and the potentiality for heaven on earth starts to emerge, because it's now taking on a life within the greater greater whole. People yearn for something better. People You know what I'm saying? People want life to be more fulfilling, more filled with love, more generous, um, uh, more aware of the compassionate underpinnings of the things that make us, each of us, feel good. And there's a yearning for more of that in the experience. And I think as that yearning has taken hold, I think that, coupled with the fact that we can look out and see that there's a lot that isn't very good about the way things are right now. When those two things collide, that's the decision point. Which side of the awareness that you now have, which side do you want to amplify? Do you want to amplify the feel-good side, the side where you can really start exploring possibilities and possibly see things in ways that you haven't before? Or do you want to continue along the negative side, even though you're aware that that side is not serving you, and you're aware that the more that you pay attention to it, the worse you feel. So, so this is really the decision point in the matrix, and unfortunately, it still is a matrix. We haven't escaped it yet, even though it is breaking down without a doubt. And I deeply believe that it is the thoughts and the intentions and the desires of humanity at large, each and every one of us, that is creating the new blueprint that we are going to experience. And I think more and more people are coming to the place in themselves where they recognize that they want to experience creativity, love, laughter, joy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that you said the laughter, because I mean there was an interesting article that I read, even between Israel and the Palestinians, and on both sides the civilians are saying, you know what, enough is enough with the BS that the powers that be want to create all of this, what they've been creating for years, and we just want peace. And it was such a beautiful story that I read, but on either side they were standing there with banners and saying, all we want is peace, we love you, from both sides to one another. So there is that mark that's going out there, and people, like exactly what you said, is people are saying, this is what we want for our world, for our earth, for ourselves.
Well, yes, I happened to see that too. It was beautiful. It was sent, I think, I saw it on YouTube, I believe, and it was an Israeli sent a very beautiful set of words to I think it was Syria, or it might have been Libya.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the specific point that you're making is that. On some very deep inner level, humanity is awakening to the fact that there is more to life than this game that we have been exposed to from birth.
Yeah.
And it's a game that only benefits a few. It doesn't benefit the whole. Mm. And the ones that it is benefiting have, for whatever reason, a very different agenda than the simple, loving agenda. Yeah. That you can walk out of your door with a smile on your face, and before too long you'll see a whole lot of people smiling at you. It doesn't really matter, because the energy that you're walking in and the energy that you're putting out is very welcoming. It's very accommodating. It's making people feel good. And if you're coming at life from that perspective, it doesn't mean that you should be blind to the other side of life and to the fact that there are other agendas at play, and some that are not very kind and loving and gentle. Mm. And it all comes down to the degree to which the person that you are, the individual, the soul, the essence of you, is committed to some level of taking responsibility for self-creation.
Mm.
That's really what it all comes down to. It doesn't change the pictures per se. What it changes is your perspective of the pictures.
Yeah.
Do you agree or follow what,
Yeah.
where I'm going with this?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you know what? It's so beautiful to hear you speak, because so much of what you said, I've been discussing this with people, and I mean, I will say it on air as well. There are times where even myself, I sit there and I say, it would be so beautiful to just meet that other person that just talks the same and understands the same. And it's really beautiful to hear you talk, Gillian, and to express. I mean, there's a lot of times, I'm sure you get it as well. We say things, we get the intuitive aspiration from the cosmos, and we share it. And sometimes it's either too early said, or people contemplate and research it, but it's really just beautiful, the way you're putting it and expressing yourself. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask you, with regards to the healing, or I call it self-activated healing, because there's a lot of people out there, we're not allowed to be called healers, but I mean, our bodies talk to us, or talk to the therapist or the healer. But everyone, what I've seen is so many people, especially light workers that are going to be doing some really amazing stuff. But they, for the last couple of years, have been going through enormous amount of clearing, cleansing, shifting. It's almost like they've been driven and pushed, like to say, come on, sort out the last bit, let's get on it, because, we're going to be carrying, whoever through. Have you observed that yourself with people around you?
Yes, I have. Okay, let me back up a bit. There are different body types, and of course, there are different emotional. All right, let's do the standard laying out of the physical to spiritual form in terms of physical, etheric, emotional, mental bodies or beings. Now, some people do a tremendous amount of processing of energy through the physical form. All right? It doesn't matter if they are light workers or they don't perceive themselves as light workers. For them, the way that they can really take concrete hold of whatever it is that they want to rid themselves of, whether it is a belief, whether it is an object. An object can be, some people may have something that they have in their environment that they feel is inimical to them. But they have been, I'm using this as an example, they've been carrying it in the subconscious that they really don't like that object. That object doesn't do well in their energy fields, but they suppress it because it was given to them by someone they love. And then every time they pass that thing, it seems as if they start getting a little bit of a headache. Okay, I'm talking the physical layer of energy now. And it seems as if when they sit across the room from it and they close their eyes, they doze off for a little bit, they tend to wake up with a splitting headache. Now, the association has not yet been made between the object and headache. The only thing that has been made is that I'm in pain and my head is really hurting me. Now, at some point in time, an awareness might dawn that it's only when I'm in that room that I start feeling this headache. And then on further review, it's only when I'm in this corner of the room that I'm feeling a headache. And then, there is that thing that was given to me by whomever. And the closer I get to it, that's what's giving me the headache. Now, if you took that object, whatever it is, and you changed it, supplanted it, turned it into your soul. What I'm saying is, for those who operate on the physical plane level, they are able to process energy through themselves on the physical plane level. The soul now being turned into this object, when the soul starts putting out certain messages, those messages are not necessarily being heard. And the soul is aware that it can impact the body. It can impact the consciousness of its ego self, its persona, more easily if it breaks a leg, because then, let us say, it is in a position where it is immobile, at least for a short period of time. But more importantly, it knows that if it breaks its leg, the being that it is going to say, what caused me to break my leg? And all of a sudden, it's starting to think about the bigger picture, the greater awareness. And all of a sudden, if it were one of the energies that believed, I'm a light worker, I'm protected, nothing can really happen to me in a physical form because I've done all of my work, done all of my cleansing. I'm ready to ascend. Mm-hmm. If that's where one finds oneself, and then the very next day one trips and falls and breaks one's leg, that might be a message from the soul that perhaps we have a little bit more to go before we're ready for this, great ascension. So I'm being a little bit facetious, but I'm using these things in a very precise way. I started with an external object, a rock or an object that was there that was the source of annoyance, and then it had to be really focused in on through a series of moves to get to the place where one could say, okay, that's the thing. If I can remove that from myself, then my environment will be happier. Likewise, when the soul finally has to convince the self that there is a little bit more to be done before you're ready for the great ascension, then the breaking of the leg is shocking. It's shocking in a number of ways. The first way is I've never done this before, and clearly being held back or held up, and the excuses come initially. I wasn't paying attention, but we're not thinking about we're not paying attention to the soul. We're thinking we weren't paying attention to that object. We walked into, tripped over, and broke our leg. But gradually, the true seeker of understanding, the true light being, I don't go for light worker so much. I prefer to think of it as a beingness. The true light being is going to recognize that for whatever reason, this event has come to me, and it is forcing me to cleanse or look at myself in a way that I had not done before. Now, we can take it to the area where you're now talking about. The illnesses might be real things like flus or discomfort in the body or any number of things, but they're physically felt issues that even though these light beings do recognize cellular or have cellular awareness, they're aware of the degree to which the body and the cells are alive and the degree to which they respond to sentience and consciousness and what we put in ourselves. All of these things are known, and yet here we are sick. Well, that's for the ones who process physically, that's the wake-up call. That's the moment in time when all of a sudden there is the awareness that I need to maybe look at certain things a bit differently. Things that I took for granted about life are no longer able. I can't do that anymore, and nor can I pretend that this event, whatever it is that happened to me, didn't ultimately cause me to alter my perspective, see things in a new light, be more aware of certain things maybe I never wanted to have to focus on, but now all of a sudden I'm aware of them. And in the whole process, learning to have a little bit of compassion for the self, the person that, I'm talking about, the me, the one that's living the life and doing the best that it can in each moment, still seemingly falling short, you know. We all do that, and so it's all big learning. Now, the rest of energy, the ones that do not process the physical, some process emotionally, and those are the ones that might wake up one morning and realize that their partner of 35 years is no longer on the same wavelength, the same vibration that they're on. And it's not something that they have been aware of all 35 years. It's been it's been happening, but they kept blocking it and blocking it and blocking it, and then all of a sudden one day, there it is. It's clear as the coffee or the tea or the orange juice, whatever it is. It's there. Well, that means that this journey of awareness is going to happen for that individual on the emotional plane. And the clearing that is going to accompany it may result, and this is where all the bodies are linked, it may result in that person going on a very different health regimen, for example, in addition to dealing with the emotional issue of having to possibly say goodbye in an intimate sense to somebody who no longer vibrates in a frequency with which both sides are comfortable, and seeing the love of making that huge sacrifice that may be involved in that separation. But in order to support that separation, this person who may not have been very physical, may never have gone to the gym, believes that a walk around a block of 2 feet is great. You know, all of a sudden this person starts to expand what they are doing in the physical form to help manage the emotional form. And so that's really how I see it. I mean, you can take that and extrapolate it to those who are very mental and logical, and sure, there's a great example for that. And then, of course, spiritual, and that's actually the hardest one. That's actually the subtlest of them all. The ones who fundamentally are highly, highly spiritual, very, very spiritual beings, and they have the awareness that they are walking on the earth plane, but they are not really of the earth plane. And you know that. I mean, we all go ahead.
Yeah, no. Sorry, I was going to say that I resonate with. Just a question. What is it possible, in your view, for someone to experience the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I didn't hear the last part of your question. You said, is it possible?
Skype is doing its thing again. Is it possible for someone to experience the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual in this lifetime, the shifts, as what you explained, divided, but is it possible for someone to experience all of them?
We all experience all of them. What I'm talking about is the primary area of focus for getting at the issue. In other words, our consciousness is available to us almost on a sliding scale. Different points or places of awareness. Some of us do a tremendous amount of processing of awareness through the body, through the physical form. Some do it through the etheric body. Some do it through the emotional. Some do it through the mental and psychic and spiritual. I mean, they're primarily 4, but they're more than that. But it's where the point of focus is. So the point of focus is where we are able in ourselves to address the issue. But once the issue is addressed, it's going to be addressed across the entire, gestalt of energy of who we are. Our entire being is altered.
Yeah, definitely. And then, Gillian, with regards to, I'm just going to jump here.
That's fine.
Yeah, because there's just so much to talk about, and I'm just going to try and cram it in, because because we've got about an hour left, if we can, if that's okay with you. Um, yeah, the Palladians, because I know a lot of
Yes.
people, for me, and just so that, because I mean, I've spoken about different things. I've had people talking about the one guy calls UFOs, and I mean, I've been at the site where he's done. So we talk about very, very open topics, which is pretty much the story of my life. But there are different groups. It's good that you said light beings, because in earlier days when I'd say light beings, they'd say, yeah, but you work with light. How can you? It's just people's perception. So that's why I just use light workers. It just makes it easier for people to, for me to get my message across. But we are all beings, and light beings. But with regards to Palladians, any other beings that you've received messages or connected with, if it's possible to touch on that.
Yes, I was very fortunate in the late 80s to have been in a grouping. Actually, a little bit of history there. We started out reading The Keys of Enoch, a book that was done by J.J. Hurtak. And we used to meet once a week at a friend's home. And in the process of meeting there, the material, as anyone who has looked at the keys, the material is quite abstruse. It requires a fair amount of in-depth understanding, as well as some background in languages, and not just the language that one speaks, but the language of light, the symbolic representations of the meanings of words when they are encoded in light. Well, anyway, that was our pursuit. And one of the members of the group was Barbara Marciniak, who at the time had just started her exploration of channeling, and she was very excited about this connection that she was having with an aspect of consciousness, or a set of beings that were clearly very advanced compared to where we all were in that moment of time. And so this is how our explorations began. We were all there, we were all assembled, and after a while we would do a bit in the book Keys of Enoch, and then after a little break, Barbara would start channeling these energies, and these energies were clearly very, very advanced in terms of the types of things that they were sharing with us. And they were not just sharing things with us that were based in that moment. They were sharing things with us that had to do with our past, with the past lives that we may have had on this earth, the existence of other great civilizations on this planet, civilizations that were so advanced that our current civilization is a bit of a joke when we think we are so far advanced, but we really are not. And so that was how it all began. It began as almost like a story of how we came here, why the planet was the way that it was, and then we were always reminded that time is the great construct, the great illusion, and that a nanosecond, which is the time frame that they perceive any of these lives that we're living, they say the life itself is pretty much a nanosecond when you think of it in terms of the great being, the great creative source of all that is. This is a very, very tiny bit of time that is taken in any of our lives. Well, within this nanosecond, there is a further delineation of a narrow window that opened in 1987 with the harmonic convergence and ran through 2012, and as far out as 2016, 2017, there's no real way in the probability fields of saying when exactly an event would end, but you can certainly project from the opening point in time, and that was the harmonic convergence in August in 1987, where a tremendous amount of energy started entering this planetary sphere for the purpose of enlightenment, of raising the frequency of humanity to the point where we could reclaim our birthright, which in a manner of speaking had become corrupted. And that's what, of course, our great scientists call junk DNA. I think they've moved beyond that now, but for a long time that's what it was.
Yeah.
But the Pleiadians called it the library, the language of light that is inside of each and every one of us. And so we started to be taught about the deeper reality, if you will, the undergirding reality that is life, that life is a very real thing. It's a very real experience that we're having, albeit that it is a very unique and solitary experience for the simple reason that we, each of us, are a set of lens, or a point of focus for a great being of light and a great creator source of energy. But even within this right now, right here, in this moment of time, I can assure you that outside of this conversation where our minds are linked together because we are sharing this moment together, and so we're both focused on pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
If there are 7 billion plus people on the planet, you have 7 billion realities.
Yeah.
You have 7 billion versions of one big field of awareness, and you know, if you want to make it out to be the elephant, and you know, and I'm one hair in that big thing, and my hair is very important, and it's probably yours is very important, everybody else's is very important, but it's not yours.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing that had to be broken down. It was this belief system that was really indoctrinating humanity and tying us all up into this belief that we all needed to think the same way, be the same way. You know, success is only defined if you have a lot of money or you have a job that is quote unquote prestigious or is seen as being prestigious, or and that your worth, your self-worth is wrapped up in your ability to play this economic game and be successful at it. Now, obviously, any person looking with eyes even slightly open can see that quite a lot of the game is quite corrupted. And starting out, you really don't have a chance at success of it because it's so rigged.
Yeah.
But they don't put that part in. They don't tell you about the rigging. They tell you about the game, and that you're to go out and, you know, learn your standard works in school, even though you listen to not all of it. Obviously, I have a PhD in education, so I can't exactly say all education is bad. But what I can, what I can say is, you can ditch a lot of it and be really well, advantaged as a result of not having had all of that brainwashing, put inside you.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, that's what happened. So starting really before that, but definitely in the late 80s, there was a complete shift in trajectory for me. Prior to that, I had been very spiritual. I always looked at it. I always was questioning. I never didn't not question. But the questions prior to the meeting up of Barbara Marciniak and these others was limited to the more traditional belief systems, Christianity and excuse me, Buddhism, Islam, Zoroastrianism, and I mean on and on. I looked at all the different religions and studied a few and in depth, and could see the similarities and the differences, and had an awareness that the only fundament that I could find in all of them was do no harm. If you get right down to it, that's the secret message in all of the great religions: do no harm. And then Christianity expanded that to be loving. You know what I mean? It took it to the next level, and it said express love, be love, etc. But it was very entrenched in a certain way of looking at reality. So even though I had these spiritual beliefs were tethering me to a way of looking at reality and looking at life, etc., that did not particularly allow for ETs or beings from outer space, or being instructed by voices that were occurring in somebody else's head, but you were listening to them and they were making sense to you, or whatever. So those are the bump ups that you have. Those are the points of evolution, and everybody's life has them. It's that step up, you know. It may not be exactly the way that mine was, but you have it. Everybody. And it may take you along a different trajectory, which is why I hate to say that this is the way, walk ye in it. That was one of the teachings from one of the pursuits of spirituality, you know. This is the way, walk ye in it. And to a degree, the middle way is the way to walk, neither to the right nor to the left. But unfortunately, many who are telling you this is the way, walk ye in it, they're more interested in it being, you know, the way they think it is, and not necessarily the way that it really, really is.
Yeah. No, and then, Gillian, I'm just going to jump in and then we're going to come back, because you said you've got a doctorate in education. I believe you've got a master's degree in journalism from UNC Capitol Hill.
Yeah, Chapel Hill.
Sorry.
Yeah, Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. It's fairly well known in America. It's a good school, but yeah, I did the learning, and the further up I climbed the academic, well, you know this, you've got 3. The further you climb, the narrower the scope.
Yeah.
You know, you get to the point where it's minutia, where it's pretty much you can make something worthy and valuable out of it. Don't mishear me, because obviously there is a learning and there's a discipline and there's an ability to focus and to get do work that encourages you to be original. Because ultimately it doesn't matter that it's really just a comma in the great scheme of things that you have originated. If you have done it with the intensity, the focus, the purpose, and the goal in mind of doing something worthy, something that you really want to you know, feel good about when it's all said and done, then those are all very valuable things that come out of the experience of higher education. But what I quickly learned was I was getting set on a path into life where if I continued down that path, I would end up probably as a professor, moved out at a fairly good school, teaching things that ultimately, in the final analysis, really weren't of that much interest to me, because the educative platform was getting further and further away from the being, the person, into very agenda-driven conceptualizations of what they wanted society to become. And so that's where you're starting to map in things like Agenda 21 and the United Nations and the environment and different ways of looking at life where not every single thing is really being explained to you. You're not really sure what is the agenda that is really at play here, but you're recognizing that lots of very important things are dropping out of the mix, whether it's the classics, whether it's teaching children to be individual, praising their individuality rather than their commonality, whatever it is. You began to see, or at least I did, began to see an agenda creeping into education that was not healthy. It was not wholesome, and it was not advancing the blueprint of the individual. And let's face facts, if individuality were not important, then why are we here?
Yeah,
Why are we here?
definitely.
So that's really what drove that. And so as soon as I realized, really, no, I don't want to do this. So and then I had to get rid of the PhD because then I was overqualified, so I dropped that off on my resumes and ditched that and got around to my degree in journalism. And I still am in North Carolina, and we have a very vibrant research triangle area here where there were a lot of technology firms, and so I realized that I could market myself as a writer. And so before too long, I was doing technical writing at a major company. And I did it at different companies initially, and then finally I got hired on by one of the big tech companies here, initially as a technical writer, and then they saw that I had analytical abilities, so I soon became an analyst, and then a senior analyst, and then the company went through one of their huge, what they called right-angle turns, and the next thing I knew, I was a project manager, and then a design project manager, and just went on until finally the company collapsed, literally, because it was overbought and oversold in the stock market, and what was once a wonderful, it really was a wonderful opportunity to participate in the earliest stages of rolling out optical fiber for the internet, because it was a technology company, but also in telephony and things like that, and optical fiber networks was one of the things that they did. They built those networks. So it was nice to be at the cutting edge of technology and seeing the potentialities that were being created, and so I enjoyed it. I was in a part of me ready for the next step when I ultimately, along with a bunch of other people, got laid off, because once the technology bubble burst, the companies that were at the forefront, if they were too extended, they're the ones that collapsed. And so the company I was with collapsed. It was one of the collapsing ones. But it was also time to move to a next stage of life, and so that happened. And so that's what we walk. We life is everything. It's, the people who just want to live the happy, carefree, friendly, feel-good life. How would we know that we're having a happy, friendly, feel-good life if we didn't have one that wasn't? Did you know what I'm saying?
No, definitely. And it's amazing that you said that, because I mean I hear so much of myself in your conversation, because I also did the same thing. I mean, there's so many things that I did, and I thought, what the heck am I actually studying this? I mean, when I went from studying a bit of electrical engineering and saying that's definitely not it, went and did military service, came out and did computer programming. I thought, what the hell am I doing this for? Then I went and did my sport professionally, still doing the metaphysical, spiritual stuff in the background. And I mean, certain technologies that I had learned back then I needed in the next process, which was like 15, 20 years down the line, or 10 years down the line. So I mean, it never is lost. So yeah.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. And sometimes we don't know why we're doing what we're doing, and that's the beauty of life.
Yeah.
But you're right. I can back up a little bit and tell you why I never pursued the degree in journalism.
Yeah.
When I was graduating with my degree in journalism, that's when investigative journalism was really very big. It was the hot topic. Everybody was, that was when Woodward and Bernstein broke open, the corruption in government, and that's when, it's after, obviously, Nixon and them, but Nixon had already happened, the Pentagon Papers had happened and everything, but that was the big thing. But while I was getting the degree, I quickly realized that there was an aspect of probing into people's lives and revealing unseemly things that may have happened to them, things that they wanted to bury. That was very much a part of this whole pursuit of journalism. As a matter of fact, the greater the dirt, which is the way that I looked at it, the more acclaim you got. It was this. No, don't mishear me. I have a great admiration for those who really stay away from the personality but still can deal with the issue. For example, there's the writer Matt Taibbi, who is exposing a lot of the financial corruption that's on our planet right now, and that is investigative journalism, okay? And its focus is very helpful to humanity at large, because he's revealing things we need to know about the society in which we're living. And so, excuse me, clearly there is a role for it. But when I was coming up, it wasn't focused on, tearing away or unveiling the criminal activities that were, shall we say, corporately driven. It was more focused on how can I take, it was more on taking down people. It was, whether it was a star that may have, made a few errors of judgment, whether it was, maybe drank too much or whatever. And they were, the journalist who was lauded and applauded seemed to have been the one who was airing a lot of the dirty laundry. Now, it was limited to quote-unquote public figures, senators or, people who we all would agree has a public role, is playing a public role. But at the same time, it seemed unseemly that the area of focus had very little to do with, let us say, government corruption. Let us say that the real thing that they were doing that was inappropriate was in the policies that they may have been enacting in their department that were inimical to the well-being of society at large. That isn't what they went after. What they went after, case in point, is Bill Clinton. I mean, you can't get a better case in point than Bill Clinton. They impeached him for something to do with his private life. I'm not saying that what he did was right. Don't mishear me. But at the time when Bill Clinton was being impeached for an affair with Monica Lewinsky, he was in the process of signing NAFTA, the very treaty that took every single job out of the United States of America. Well, not everyone, but all the high-paying jobs went with NAFTA. That is what happened. And that was what was the real issue, the issue under which he should have been chastised, the issue he did not impeached. But what should have happened is if we did have the balance of power in our government that we were supposed to have, a tripartite balanced government, then when that treaty came up for being signed, the Congress would have said no. But of course the Congress didn't say no to that treaty. They approved it. And then once those things get approved, of course, we know that there are bribes and a lot of things that are going on that are unseemly. But what I'm saying is none of that, which is relevant and important and should be carefully explained and shown to the American people, none of that is what was being investigated. What was being investigated is a president of the United States having unseemly relations with a young woman who was not his wife. And that's what I'm talking about. It was this complete deflection.
Yeah,
you know, it's taking you in a...
Sorry,
go ahead.
Sorry, that's what I was going to say, and you actually took the words out my mouth. It is deflection. That's the tactics that they use. It's to do a total sidetrack, get everyone's attention away from what's really going under the carpet.
Precisely. And so that's the game that's being played. But again, to quote a cliche, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So you're correct. I learned investigative skills. I have them. They're in my arsenal. They're abilities that I have. The fact that I didn't want to utilize them the way that I was being offered, if I had pursued journalism in that particular era, doesn't negate the fact that the skill set is known and the skill set can be utilized at a different time, in a different way, and in a way that's far more wholesome and personally satisfying, etc. So that's really where we come full circle, and we realize that sometimes we're doing things that we don't know. As we start them, we're very excited. They're wonderful. We think this is the future we want, and then as we get a little deeper into them, we find out, this is not really the future that I want, but I'm so far in it, I may as well complete it.
Yeah.
And so you do.
Yeah, but it's amazing, don't you think, Gillian, that like for my life, I'm going to say from my experience, I've been given the opportunity to touch on things and then say, no, I actually don't want to do this. You know, that's not for me. This is where I want to be. Let me try. But it gives us the opportunity to learn, have the experience up to wherever the universe wants us to go, and then say the free will, the decision to say, right, that's not for me. That's what people find. Yeah, people need to look at, and because I mean I hear so many people with regrets, and with counseling, and it's oh God, why did I do that? And it takes some time for them to actually understand. But maybe they needed to go down in the journey to realize that that's not what they really want.
Well, you're absolutely right, and it's again now we're right back to belief systems, focus, and consciousness. If we really think about life, is life all about experience? And if it's about experience, it means that we're going to make errors in judgment. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to go down paths that are not necessarily the ones that ultimately will serve us. But indeed, have we ever really made a mistake? If we have gotten an experiential awareness, some new understanding of ourselves out of the experience. So this is really where this is the hardest thing for me, even for my own being. It's so easy at times to want to say, "Oh, good gracious, I just messed up. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't." And then all of a sudden, you're going down this path of, mea culpa. I'm such a big sinner. Okay, but had you not done this thing that you now look back on with either anxiety or regret, and recognize that perhaps you shouldn't have done it quite the way that you did, or that you were perhaps a little too sharp, or your tone was wrong, or you didn't mean to, yell at that person, or whatever it is that you did, to take it at a very simple level, you find that if you even have the awareness that, maybe I shouldn't have yelled at that person, that is an experiential learning moment. And you focus on either aspect of that moment. You can focus on the fact that you yell at somebody and you maybe shouldn't, and feel really bad about it. Or you could say, well, thank you. I see now that my energy was really not in balance when I was speaking to that person. They really could push a button in me that irritated me, and I did not respond very maturely. But now I know that person has the ability to push that button in me, and for myself, I am going to ensure that they may be able to push another button, but they will never push that button in me again. Lesson learned. And so it's always consciousness. Where do we want to place our attention? Do we want to place our attention on the fact that we have erred and possibly done it, way more times than we ever really perhaps would have liked? We don't like falling off the stage. Nobody likes that. If we were standing up for a performance and we tripped and we fell and we were mortified in the moment. But then again, what happens when the next time you are now an audience member and somebody else falls and trips, and you have this immediate feeling of compassion, this immediate awareness of what they are going through, what they're experiencing? Lesson learned. It's completely how you want to perceive each and every moment that you're living. And because life is flying by at such a tremendous pace, it's very easy to hold on to the negativities that are happening in the day and forget all the wonderful things. When your cat smiled, I mean, I don't know if your cat smiles. My cat smiles. And so occasionally there's the cat smiling. And if I'm in not a good place, I miss it. But if I am even in a bad place and I see the cat smiling, all of a sudden my mood changes. I'm changed. I'm altered. Yeah. Well, that's what we're supposed to be doing in every instance. But we keep falling down, and that's all of us. That's me and everybody. Because we're learning, we're experiencing, we're not perfect.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then just coming back to, I just made a note here. You use the words for people that go through the experience of lack of. My explanation to people is the lack of is the matrix of deception, because from that people feel guilt, fear, jealousy, envy. It creates these illusions about how life is, and that's what society's done. It's created people to feel that if they have a lack of something, that they don't fit, or they rejects, or it's just going back to this conditioning, this programming.
I agree, because you're exactly right there. You see, when we start out as babies, we are very much at mercy of the belief systems and constructs of those who have responsibility for our care. And that is the opening note that's why so many say that if you can have a child between the ages of 0 and 7, you can really mold them into creatures of great individuality, if that's what you program them to be, or fearful beings who bow to the matrix and do not want to question even the smallest aspect of it. So it's this conditioning. So let's start there, the conditioning. What does the conditioning do? If we are very, very blessed, we come into life experiences where we have a very good mother, a very good father figure, wonderful cousins, wonderful aunts and uncles. We go to a good school where it might be a private school where they're teaching things like the Montessori method or something where it's actually quite educative. And or we have friendship circles because our parents are in certain professions where they give us the advantage of meeting others who are similarly advantaged, and we grow to maturity, and we end up going to the best schools there are because our parents can send us there. And then we graduate and we meet Mr. or Miss Wonderful and we get married, and here we've got this wonderful path, and then bam, something happens. Even in this so-called perfect life that has been unfolding as a little masterpiece in the middle of a lotus pond of delights, heaven on earth. All of a sudden, something happens. The thing that might happen is that we are deeply, deeply, deeply in love with our partner, and that individual contracts cancer. And it's not a cancer that is easily cured, or it is not something that our belief system has given us the capacity to believe that we can heal. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Because even within this perfect or seemingly perfect set of life circumstances, experiences, and growth spirals, there have been limiting beliefs that have been put even in this wonderland of perfect life. And one of the limiting beliefs is cancer kills. Right?
Yeah.
And you believe it on some very deep level. And that's where the matrix versus the person comes in. The challenge that individual who is so advantaged has lived such a seemingly perfect life up to that moment of diagnosis. The challenge that they face in terms of letting go of that belief that cancer kills is as difficult and strenuous and challenging and pushing to the limits as any other belief that might have been formed in less perfect worlds, where the mom might have been a little bit psychotic, and the dad might have been alcoholic. I mean, I've jumped. I realize that. I've jumped. But what you really have here now is consciousness. In both realities, the one that is challenged with a psychotic parent and a drunk father might break out of the belief systems at a very early age and start trending for themselves and believing for themselves and deciding for themselves what is right. And they too might encounter a point in time where they're married and they love their partner and their partner contracts cancer, but they believe with every aspect of their being that it can be beaten, it can be conquered. You see?
Yeah.
And then the other one has been so privileged and really never had to be really truly challenged within the matrix of its belief systems, because its beliefs were supported all along the line. Now it is confronting that exact same challenge And guess what? You see, it's not necessarily as prepared for jettisoning belief that cancer kills as the one who has been jettisoning beliefs from the very beginning.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you say that, because even the labels on cigarettes, you know, I've said to smokers, so what does it say on your cigarette? And I'll do that on purpose. I don't do it anymore because now they understand why. And it will say, smoking may cause heart issues or cancer, or et cetera, et cetera. And then I said to them, so what do you think of this? They say, oh, well, if I die, I die. You know, it's like they've bought into it, and it's like, well, I don't care. But by them saying that, they've already bought into that program, that matrix.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing in South Africa. We had this whole thing about little cans of cool drink and sweeties and everything with the pictures of greys on. And it was like this, and the energy wasn't great. And it was this whole thing of just acceptance that it's okay. But if people could understand and see and experience frequencies, just coming close to those cans, because it's got that matrix on, or the sweets or chocolates, I'd be saying, okay, well, you're putting an aspect, a resonance within your body by drinking, and you know, you can't just talk about that to anyone because they don't believe you.
Well, that's true too, and that's where the hidden manipulating agenda. That's where, to run full circle. When we started out, we were talking about heaven on earth, and we were also talking about the fact that there seems to be an expansion in an ability for people to see things that were once very hidden. And this is as a result of all of these scandals and all of these hidden things that have been so deleterious to human growth and evolution. They're all coming to the surface now. They're all standing revealed. And there's no hiding. There's no hiding from them anymore. It's happening at a very, very rapid rate. And many who previously have been sufficiently fluoridated to, accept the agenda for whatever it is, these are being impacted with the speed of events. It's as if here's this one psychic shock, and then as soon as a psychic shock is dealt with, here's another, and before you can deal with that one, here's another and another and another, because I feel that is the drumbeat of waking up. And now I'm going to say something that's probably going to strike me as being quite bizarre. But if you can conceive of this thing as a game that both sides are really playing for the same team. Both sides. They're just wearing different jerseys. You've got the ones that are wearing the light jerseys, the positive beings, and then you've got the ones that are wearing the black jerseys, the dark jerseys, the shall we say negative beings, okay? But between them both, so you got the positive and negative pole of energy. But you know from electrical studies that you need both the positive and the negative to create light.
Yeah.
And then when you go the step further and you begin to realize that maybe beyond this world in which we find ourselves, there is a grand game, a grand design, where we could choose what roles we wanted to play, whether the dark side or the light side, but we were warned, we were told that there is a great deal of seductiveness when you're playing the dark side role, because it is a role that can be defined as service to self, and because we have an ego in addition to a soul and a personality, but we have primarily a persona, a mask that we wear, and an ego that we're attempting to bring to maturity. If we take the dark side role, we're going to encounter some real dangers. And one of those dangers is that we might lose our way and get so caught up in the power and the delights of the ego that we may end up having to live a number of lives in order to recalibrate and get back into harmony and balance. But if we take on that challenge, and we do so successfully, we could be the baddest of the baddest bad guys and find ourselves, when we go to the other side, greatly praised for our performance, because as a result of our wickedness, we woke up a planet.
Yeah.
You know, and don't mishear me, I'm not singing the praises of Hitler.
Yeah, I know.
That's not what I'm doing here. What I am saying is there may be something to the statement that the souls that incarnate as the ones that we consider just real demons, true devils, you know, the worst of the worst. When we actually get to the other side of the game table, we may discover that these were some grand masters.
Yeah.
And that they took on an aspect of reality because of their great love for Creator Source.
Yeah.
And out of that great love for Creator Source, they did what they did so they could wake up Creator Source in its creation.
It's like being the catalyst.
Exactly.
But a lot of people, when I've had that discussion with people, a lot of people, Gillian, find it difficult to accept. And you know, it's okay, give them time. But what you just explained, it's beautiful the way you said it. But people need to look at it that way, because what happened with 9/11 shook people up. It woke them up. A lot of people started doing a lot of investigation, and a lot of things were revealed. But that, you know, what would be perceived as, oh my God, they got bust, maybe that was part of the greater plan.
Exactly. And that the greater plan, now, this is where an interesting link again comes into the conversation, because you asked about the Pleiadians, and I shared a little bit about, you know, what they told us, what they focused on. But what I didn't share is there are indeed energies that are assisting in this entire upliftment and unfolding of humanity at a higher consciousness layer, level, frequency, whatever, dimension, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. It's a process, and at the end of it, we will have evolved beyond what we are in this moment. But what we were told is that on this planet at this time, there is a vast array of energy and consciousness. Some are quite young and very immature. Some are very, very advanced. And the majority are somewhere in the middle. All right? It's sort of like this bell curve, if you will. You're going to see the extremes of both the plus and minus 3 layers of the normal curve. So you're going to have ones that are really far behind in the game, and then you're going to have some that are way, way, way in advance of the game. And then you're going to have ones in the middle, and, you know, in various places just along this continuum of energy. But what had been determined is that it's not so much that humanity is moving, that you're moving the ones that are in the, say, the negative -1 up to the 0 mark on the bell curve. You're not really moving them from where they are up. You're moving from one bell curve that might be on, say, dimension 3, because that's how people are thinking about it, to another bell curve that's on dimension 5. So what's happening is all consciousness is evolving. All of it. Even the ones that you might want to look at and think, well, there goes a retard. No. Yeah. Even there, that is being raised up. That consciousness is being, awakened. And so the whole process that we're all undergoing is one where we are being given an opportunity to reconfigure the experiential planes of reality such that they make for greater comfort for the whole and not for just a few. And that the commitment that many of us, I'm going to stick with the light beings for right now, but the commitment that many of us who may consider ourselves to be light beings have made is commitment to fostering and unfolding this promise of heaven, a paradisial planetary experience, one where the earth is acknowledged and thanked and seen for the masterful and beautiful creation that she has given us to evolve in and to play in and to be in, right? And where we each have an appreciation for a grander design, a greater whole, a more perfected potentiality in our blueprint of energy in our lives. And so it's this that's really happening. And it is not only being assisted by the energies that we can perceive with our 3D eyes and our physical forms, it is also energies that are supporting this entire evolution in consciousness. And some of these are hidden, some of these are inside of us, some of these are around us. There are many who are beginning to see the ships in the sky. And I laugh when they say that. You know why? Because it is as if the dimensions are thinning.
Yeah.
Who is to say those ships were not always in the sky?
Oh, they've been there for so long. I mean, this is history of my life, seeing them. But they've always been there.
And the thing is, as the scales fall from the eyes, as consciousness climbs this energy, I mean, look at the solar. There's so many indications that this is all of a wake-up. This is a time of evolution, of planetary evolution. Another thing we were told by the Pleiadians is that this is truly an exceptional event. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's never been done before, because, of course, planets have been evolved and civilizations have moved up the ladder and made big, huge forward steps and in awareness. But this particular one, I think, is quite unique because we are carrying so many life forms and so many ways of perceiving and so many belief systems and so many ways that we could all have gotten lost down the rabbit hole. And so that's what makes this one particularly a treasure and an experience that I think when it's all said and done, all of us are going to be quite amazed and pleased and happy and thrilled that we were given the opportunity to participate in it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Gillian, just a quick one, because I did ask people to, because they knew I was going to have you on the show, so they did ask, they did send, I've got 4 questions here. The first one, what function do the Pleiadians have here now in these times we are in? Meaning Earth, obviously, yeah.
Well, that question would be better directed to Barbara Marciniak and others who are really working very closely with the Pleiadian energy. I personally have never channeled Pleiadian energy, but I have been very well schooled in the energies in a certain period of time. What I would say is wake up. That is probably the message. It's always been the message that they've given, and it's the message that they probably are still giving through many avenues that are seemingly channeling the frequency of the Pleiades. They would want us to recognize the love that is at the base of all creation, the fact that creative source is very present in this moment, in this time, in this now. And when we allow it, it's always about allowing. When we allow it, this great being is alive and in us and perceives reality in and through us. So that's really the focus that we that serves us best. It's the focus of appreciation, gratitude, love, and at the same time, don't have on blinders. That was the other thing. They never, ever, ever believe in just looking at the picture from one half only. You have to see the full picture. You have to see everything. And the key to seeing everything is staying in balance. You have to now challenge the being that you are to be in a place of balance where you can allow energy to flood through you and alert you both to what is happening in the outer reality and what is happening in the inner reality, and finding that that place of balance. So I would recommend that if you want to get stuff on the Pleiadians right now, do a Google search on Barbara Marciniak or any of the others, or even put in the Pleiadians, and and I'm sure you'll come up with lots of wonderful YouTubes, etc., that will tell you what the message is in the present moment.
Fantastic. You never know, we might just have her on my show, so I'll look into that as well. Here's another question: how are people not able to see them? I think what they're trying to say is, how come people can't see them? I've got my interpretation of what, but I'd like to hear. It would be nice to have you.
Well, for one thing, this is a free will universe, and while all is allowed, certain things are indeed not advantageous, shall we say. Now, get back to what I've been saying. I've tried to focus this, or I have focused this, on belief systems. We have been raised on a planet where the predominant belief system is humanity is the only thing that's ever been created. We're it. We are the only planet with life. And everything out there is dead. This is it. Okay? Well, obviously that's not true teaching, but it's the predominant teaching. And as long as it remains the predominant teaching on this planet, I don't believe that any highly evolved, highly sentient beings are going to present themselves in a way that's going to put fear, paranoia, and just, what's the point of that? So what I think is happening is that the ones who are open to the potentiality of that reality are seeing and capturing and filming and videotaping objects. I mean, they are, because they have broken through the belief system barrier and they can now see it. Now, what I do believe is that as the energies are rapidly accelerating and climbing, more and more and more people will be open to the potentiality, and therefore that's when you'll start seeing them in greater numbers.
Yeah, and also just to add in, Gillian, and also for the listeners, you got to be open. You got to have an open mind, because they don't. A lot of them don't look like you, me, and the person next to you. They do look quite different. So, from my experiences, I'm going to say, rather have an open mind, work from your heart space, and then things do come. Here's another question: what does the universal message have for humanity in the near future?
Now, this will be Gillian's version of the universal message. I think the message is, "In patience possess ye your soul." Now, that originally came, I think, from Edgar Cayce. But the reason I choose that as the universal message is that there needs to be a certain amount of centeredness and calmness as we, each individual that is here, that has been given the opportunity to be alive in this moment, we're going to find that compared to where we are, there are going to be many who are quote-unquote backwards. They are not where you are. And if you are impatient, you're not going to be able to break through the barriers that are inside of them, that are presenting fear or anxiety or uncertainty or any of the negativities that are very much alive and present on the planet right now because of the high dispensation for the negative current to be at play in our awakening, because that's really what's happening. So I think the universal message is, first of all, trust that there is a plan, that there is a great vision, that there is an aspect of energy that is all-wise and is indeed ultimately in charge of everything that's happening to us. I think secondarily, we have to allow for the fact that the earth herself is a sentient being. She is alive, and she has made certain decisions about advancing her entire creation. And that means a step up in consciousness for each and every one of us. And I think finally, the universal message is always, always going to be, have that awareness of the greater aspect of who you are. Never, ever, ever limit yourself to just this little being, whether it's Gillian speaking these words to you here or your ears listening to me. There's a bigger aspect in each of us, and that is a universal aspect, a universal being, where we can be considered cells in the mind of this great being. And the more that we allow ourselves intimate awareness of that being, I think the universal message will be imparted very, very rapidly inside of each of us.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Lovely. I also believe. That's so beautiful. No, you said it so beautiful. And then here we've got the last, which is amazing that you just said the feminine, but I'll read it out. Why do people, my apologies, why do people refer to the earth as feminine? Why not masculine feminine? Okay, interesting question.
Well, that is an interesting question, because you would have to do a little bit of research with John Lamlash and some of the others that have found the materials that really explain Sophia. The Sophia myth is really where we're going with that information. And if you really think about it, there is a magnetism that keeps us on the surface of the earth, okay? We are magnetically held within the body of the earth. The very cells of our body are made up of the body of earth, the elements of the earth, all of it. And as we go through life, we exchange the cells of our body with each other through the atmosphere, breathing, through everything. Now it has come down to us through time that the womb is the expression of the feminine, and the womb is the place of creation and that gives birth to something, to a being, to another layer of experience. And unlike the sun, which is shining down on us, and it's considered the masculine counterpart to the earth is truly the mother energy, in that she has created the vessel, the vehicle, through which we can live and grow and have being. And so I think it is for these reasons that the earth is considered a feminine energy.
Yeah. No, lovely explanation. And then, Gillian, okay, your website, shiftfrequency.com. If we can just go into, just quickly, I mean, I know we could talk for hours and hours. There's just so much to talk and share, and it's just so beautiful. But your spiritual numerology, and I see on your website,
Yes.
you do baseline analysis, you do transits and progressions, you do complete analysis. I mean, there's a lot of things that you do. Compatibility with a partner, very important. You know, yeah, what
Yes.
better partner? But yeah, if we could just touch on that, please.
Yes. The reason I always say I'm a spiritual numerologist and not just a numerologist is because indeed when I get the blueprint of energy to interpret, I invite in my guides, and I invite in the guides of the individual who's asked for an interpretation of their blueprint. And the reason for that is that every single thing in life is a symphony of energy. And so even though you have basic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the combination of those numbers, whether it's 1, 3, 5, whether it's 9, 2, 8, 5, whatever it is, that combination is what is making you a unique being. And there is always going to be an emphasis on certain aspects of these energies. And the most precise way to get to the true tabulation of the energies that are at play in a blueprint is to invite the blueprint to be present when one is interpreting or analyzing the energies. So that is how I do it. I do it through, first of all, creating a spiritual link-up. It's very simple. I do it through breath. I ask people to breathe in to the beat of 4, hold to the beat of 4, release to the beat of 4, continue releasing, and then we do that 3 times, and then we say a light, very light invocation, takes about 15 seconds, and then the energies are set. And I personally am always surprised at the readings when they are finally complete, because if someone had asked me before I did the reading, when I just looked at the numbers, what I thought this was, it's entirely very different than what it ultimately ends up being as a result of the spiritual component being added to it. Now, what I found is that many people we forget. And this is called a plane of forgetfulness for a reason. We forget what we wanted to do or what we intended to do when we first came to this planet because of the overlay of energy, the veil of forgetfulness, our upbringing, and our belief systems. And the great advantage of a spiritual numerology reading is to return to the aspect of yourself who planned this life. And it never ceases to amaze me how many people recognize themselves in their readings because they can see the energies at play.
That's so beautiful. Gillian, I'm sorry, but we've absolutely just run out of time. It's been so amazing. I'd love to have you back on because there's just so much to discuss. It's so beautiful to connect. It's been such an honor to have you on. And tonight we're streaming live on both our radio stations, one in the States and one in the UK. But yeah, in closing, within a minute, any words of wisdom for the people out there that are struggling?
Before I get the words of wisdom, I want to say thank you so much for visiting my website and inviting me to speak with you. It has been my pleasure and my privilege, and I feel very blessed for you having approached me to do this.
And it's such a blessing to have you. Yeah, let's continue. Thank you.
So we have to look at it in terms of spirit operating very serendipitously to make this all come about. And to everybody else, the greatest words of wisdom that have ever been put on this planet appear on the eve of a Greek temple, and it says, know thyself. Because in a nutshell, if the part of us that we're afraid of are the parts of us that truly, truly love us. Usually when we experience the fear of looking at ourselves or being who we are, it's because of a conditioning that says that we're not good enough. We're never good enough. We're never going to measure up. All this stuff. It's just stuff. Because who you are, truly, is a masterwork. You're a work of a master. A master planner exists in each of us. And in knowing that self, that is really where we attain the be-all and end-all of experience. And so that's it. I mean, that's the only thing I can say is just be yourself. Laugh when you want to laugh, even if everybody else isn't. Cry if you feel that that's the energy that is wanting to express through you. Think for yourself. Don't allow anybody to tell you what's right for you. You decide. And love. That's it. There's no more to it than that, truly.
That's absolutely perfect. Thank you so much. Gillian Grannum. I hope I've got that pronounced.
Yes, Gillian Grannum. You did wonderfully. You pronounced my name beautifully. That's it.
It's shiftfrequency.com. If you could just stay on just for a second, just so that I could chat to you. But thank you so much for joining us. I'll just hang up and phone you back. Thank you. God bless.